Good morning, everybody. This is Greg Aden with Aden Leadership for another episode of Servant Leadership Podcast. And this morning, I'm very, very thankful of having a very interesting person who she goes by Lisa Pedersen. She's with the Root Purpose Group, and we're going to find out all about her. But Lisa, I have to admit, when I'm going through your stuff and I see that you have 20 plus years of your life involved with animals, and not only animals, but raising money for them. Tell us a little bit about that, and where did that love come from?
Yeah. My journey to get to, I was at the Humane Society of Boulder Valley for 21 years, and it was really rooted in matching the special gifts that we all bring to our work to something that I felt really connected and passionate about. That why is so important to me. It's the basis of my entire career. And so at the Humane Society was really able to see that in action and spent most of my career in nonprofit management. And I think the beautiful thing about the nonprofit community is that it is so directly tied to what's the impact you want to have, what's the thing you want to create in a community. And so at the Humane Society of Boulder Valley, the thing that really connected me to that purpose was building healthy relationships between pets and people. Having had my own relationships with animals over the years, I knew the power of that. And so to be able to bring my energy to helping to create more of those, and the impact that those then relationships not only have on the animals, but how they change the families that they're a part of. So my journey to get to the Humane Society got started in sales right after college, needed to get a job and found out I was pretty good at that, and then really missed being involved in the arts. That was my background. I was a theater major. I applied that sales perspective to fundraising and worked for an arts organization in Boulder for a few years, and then saw an opportunity at the Humane Society and I was like, all right, this feels like good to my soul. And so joined the organization in 1997, I think. So long time ago.
Yeah, awesome. Well, you say pets and their lives they help create with people. This is just new for me because I haven't had a pet since 2003. Okay, so go back way back, and I was married before. We had a little Shih Tzu puppy, but in the divorce, she got the dog, and I didn't. But that's okay. So roll forward till this past June, my 11-year-old just really wanted a cat. And I have to admit, I've never been a cat lover, and they just seem like, what do you do with a cat, right? Anyway, so long story short, we decided that we were going to go and rescue one. So we did. And now we have a cat. Her name's Stella. She's six months old, and she loves me. I love her. And I started carrying her around. She just fits, back then she fit right across the forearm. And I just carried around and loved her. And I have to admit, I mean, you can tell by the smile on my face. Now my wife says, "Oh, that's gross. That's not necessary." But she's not saying it in a mean way. She's saying it she's not a baby, Greg. Well, she kind of is.
Yeah,
because
she's your baby.
She is. She needs water. She needs love. And anyway, I can't be more proud of Brooks, who waited and saved his money and built all the toys for her. And so back to the connection it has on the family. What I'm getting to is he has become responsible for her.
Yeah.
And when he's with us, he takes care of her. Now, when he's with his mom, I do. But you said the word soul, and I believe that when you love something this much, it does get into our hearts and our soul, and deep rooted. Let's talk about what you're doing today. And again, what was going on in your head and your heart, Lisa, when you decided to leave something you just mentioned you love so much and get into coaching? I mean, who in their right mind would get into leadership coaching? Tell us about that.
I love it. I think for me, the journey really started in my time as being a CEO at the Humane Society, and really learning that I think that, I was I was like 37 when I became CEO, and went into that role thinking I had to have all the answers. You're the CEO. You have to know everything. You have to do all the things. and really tried on a number of leadership styles and tried to replicate things that I saw in leaders that I respected and admired, and was pretty miserable and tired all the time because I wasn't being my authentic self. And when I got clear that my leadership style was really about facilitating conversations and asking the right questions that led to the team finding the answers, that's when I really started to love my role and where I think I was most effective. And so it was really when I put on my coaching hat as the CEO and really brought that power of inquiry to the conversations, getting the right people around the table and just being that catalyst for the conversations that can get out the different opinions, we can suss through, and then it becomes really fun instead of feeling the pressure of like, oh, I have to know all the things. Just recognizing the talent that you have around you and just tapping into that.
So after 4 years, yes, almost.
So my first probably, I was there as the CEO for about 12 years. I would say, it took me about 5 years to kind of figure that out. And then really just felt like that is the role that I played. And so it was a natural evolution for me to consider, all right, I think in any organization, there's an arc of time where you're an effective leader, where you're bringing the skills that you need to for the organization. And I kind of felt like, okay, I'm at a place now where I've done the things I think I needed to do, the work that I wanted to accomplish, built a really strong team, and I was ready to consider what I might do next. And so it was in a CEO group that I've been a part of for 15 years that said, here's something that we see as a skill in you, a gift, and you might consider how can you bring that to other leaders. And so then started exploring executive coaching, got my certification, and then 2019 launched my company. And it really was just a manifestation of the thing that I love to do, which is to unlock that potential in others.
What if you were to put a label on the style of leadership that you brought to the Humane Society of Boulder Valley, what would you, how would you have tagged yourself back then? What kind of leader were you?
I mean, I definitely had a lot of really strong servant leadership, and just that concept of investing in the team and helping them define their strengths and setting them up for success. That was really what gave me the most joy. And I think the thing while the organization was completely around, the mission of serving those animals and people that were connected to them, I was really clear that if I built a team that was thriving, the animals would be the beneficiary. The mission would be accomplished because of the people that were doing the work. So that was really what brought me joy and gave me energy. And I think was that was my leadership style, is really to be in service of their own development, and that as a team we were creating innovation together.
Yeah. You obviously mentioned two words that I've been very, very committed to since I left corporate America, and that's servant leadership. And when I was with Intercontinental Hotels Group, as a vice president, I actually interviewed probably over 35 people in various categories of the organization. And my intention was, what do you know about servant leadership or being of service to others before you lead them? And interesting, and in a huge organization, was very successful, one of the largest hotel companies in the world at the time, not many people even knew what it meant. And then when we did discuss it, it came across as soft. Why do you want to be a soft leader?
Yeah.
Because they didn't know anything about it. And I'm sure you've done all the research on Robert Greenleaf, et cetera. And a lot of people always say, Greg, you're studying or you're focused on something that's faith-based. Why are you doing that? And I said, no, it's not faith-based. It's the right thing to do. And are you a mom? Do you have children?
I'm a stepmom, so I have two wonderful stepkids.
Okay. So as a parent, you might agree, Lisa, that as parents and leaders, we show up very similar. And in this case, and I have two boys, they are my most important followers, period. And, if you want to go to the faith side, I would say that, sure, this guy named Jesus, he was a pretty darn good leader. And that's kind of my answer is if you take care of your team, they will manifest into leaders themselves, and then they become better leaders. So how do you find happiness in your work today, Lisa, when you through your experiments of working with teams, and how do you find joy, and how do you find your soul work?
Mm. Great question. And it's, the reason that I named my company Root Purpose Group is because I really do believe that when we're rooted in our purpose, when
Yeah.
we're really clear on the impact that we want to have, the change that we want to make in the team, in the community, in the world that we're living in, that's when we get the most joy. And so for me, my personal why is really to be a catalyst for discovery, so that people can thrive in their work and their lives. And I think as leaders, we have to recognize that we need to be thriving in all aspects of our life, and we need to create that for our teams as well, because we are. So for me, the joy is really helping to have leaders have the space to get connected to their own why, to have their work be grounded in that, to find their voice, because there's a lot of noise that can happen in leadership, and there's a lot of different ways that we can get pulled. But when we have clarity and we're really, really connected to that impact that we want to have, that's when I think things get easier. And we can use that as a filter of how am I making decisions? And am I getting closer to my why if I do this versus this? And the same for organizations, having them be really tied to, all right, what is it we're trying to do in the world? And having that be that just a constant way of what are the questions I should be asking myself that let me know, yep, I'm serving that purpose.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people don't know what their purpose is, I believe. And sometimes they arrive when they have a vice president or a senior vice president or a chief of something in front of their name. And you ask somebody, well, what do you do? And the first thing they say is their title.
Yeah.
No, no, no. A 12-year-old looking up at you in an elevator isn't going to be really impressed with your title. They're going to know, why do you do what you do?
Yeah.
So what would you tell that 12-year-old looking at you in the elevator and saying, Miss Pedersen, what is it that you do and why do you do it?
I would go back to that. I see my role as being that catalyst. And I would tell that 12-year-old that, the thing that I love to do is to help others discover their own gifts and to take those gifts and employ them in the world.
Beautiful. Understand your gifts and employ them in the rest of the world. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice, Lisa, if the majority of us really woke up every morning with a simple, deep-rooted, soul-based purpose?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yeah. And the thing I love about purpose and when you get clear on your gifts is that you can apply them to even those areas in your work that maybe you don't feel as energized by, right? So, I was talking to a CEO the other day and we were talking, he's an engineer by nature. And I was like, you just need to, whatever the situation is, you can apply that engineering brain to problem solve in this, in this aspect. It's not in this particular thing, it may not be a traditional engineering role that you're playing, but you're applying that engineering mind, that gift that you have for problem solving and figuring out the structure that needs to be in place to really have an impact on this challenge that you're facing. So I think when we can use our gifts, our geniuses to, and have clarity of that, we can apply them in every aspect and the work just gets easier and more fun.
Yeah, you've said every aspect of our life a couple times now, and I'll ask you to yes or no question. And do you believe there's a work-life balance?
I don't have a yes or no question to that. I believe balance is that I was working with a group once and one of the brilliant women leaders in the group was like, it's kind of like a lava lamp. Like there's no, at different times we may be more focused on the work part of our life. And at other times, even during a day, there's times. So I think really it's about making intentional choices about how we want to spend our energy and
Beautiful.
having those be true to who we want to be.
Right.
That's more important to me than balance. So not a yes and no question for me.
No, and I believe the answer to me is there isn't a work-life balance. You have one life and we decide how we want to be, right? In your lava lamp experience example, I believe too many people blame their spouse, their kids, their work, their environment, their boss, and they don't take responsibility for their life. So then they like to walk around or drive around and complain about I'm out of balance, but they don't look in the mirror and realize that same person in the mirror is the reason they're out of balance. And A gentleman I interviewed the other day had a nice phrase about it. He said, I fit my work into my life.
Yeah.
But everything else comes first.
Mm-hmm.
So your why isn't defined by what you do for a living. Your why and who you were on this earth is going to be defined by the people who were most interested or dependent or connected to you.
Yeah.
And again, I bring this up quite often, Lisa, but I challenge anybody to walk around a cemetery and find vice president or CEO or CFO, and you just won't, because at the end of the day, no one really cares what your title was. But yet we spend all this time, money, and energy becoming what? A doctor, a dentist, a leadership coach. At the end of the day, you'll be remembered by the people that you impacted. And I love your word impacted the most. And I've got this very simple diagram, Lisa, that I coach with, and it starts with a heart in the center. And that heart could be you, it could be your family, it could be your organization. But every day, and you said it, not me, we choose how we're going to impact others. So what is your recommendation, Lisa, when you're coaching and you're curious about the people in front of you? What do you recommend to them and you said it, intentional choices. What do you recommend them to stay on track with their intentional choices to serve other people? What do you do? How do you help them?
I think it goes back to just that concept of keeping your purpose, your why. And I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek and the simplicity of his so that, like, so what's the contribution and what's the impact? And so, again, when I'm working with a leader, to just remind them of, like, what is that contribution? What's that unique gift? What's the thing that you're bringing, that you do, that just comes naturally to you, that you want to bring to the world? And what's the impact? And using that as that's the litmus test. Am I serving my purpose in this contribution? And I love the fact that you bring up, like, it's not about our titles, because if we're really clear on the gifts that we bring and how we want to impact the world, it can be applied to anything we do. So a purpose statement, a why statement, is not specific to the role I'm in today. It's who I am. It's the contribution that I want to have in this journey that I'm on, in the time that I'm able to share that.
Yeah, and I believe our purpose gets more fun and more exciting when we surround ourselves with people who are, I don't want to say exactly like us, but they're like-minded and like-hearted. So we're always being filled up with other people who understand who we are and appreciate it. But also, Doug McGee, we were talking about on off air, he's one of those men that challenges other people to be real. And to be the best version of themselves. And I love the work Doug's doing with men, because in my honest opinion, if we can't parent better going forward, this country's never going to get any better. If we continue being the same, and I'll say parents and not pick on men here, if we continue to be the same interesting and not purpose-driven parents, how are we going to expect our kids to be any different than how we were treated, or how we were raised, or how we were led, I should say? And I believe a lot of parents just haven't got the connection between leadership and parenting. And it's not about you, parents. It's about the people you're raising. But the ego and the opportunity to see how wonderful and how rich I am and what I drive, and it just isn't matter. And meanwhile, your kids are watching you make all these interesting decisions, but yet we expect them to turn out different than we did, and it's just it's not going to happen.
One of the things that I've really, as a step parent coming into my stepkids' lives, they were, I think, 7 and 12, or 7 and 10, just that when I drop into curiosity with them, which is, again, it's very much who I am as a person. I'm a very curious individual. That's why I love coaching. And as a parent, that when I do that, oh my gosh, the conversations are richer. I am in service of them much more than when I'm, trying to teach them something, right? It's, you can, just like when you're working with a leader, one-on-one coaching, you're unlocking their own voice. You're unlocking their own answers. It's not about, again, I come back to, it's not about me to have the answers. It's about, okay, where are you at? And just getting curious and going beneath the surface. So that's one thing that, and I'll just be really vulnerable about this. Sometimes it's hard for me to stay in curiosity, right? Because I may have my own agenda with my stepkids. And so just to recognize, oof, it's so much easier when I stay in that place of curiosity. And I'm a much better step parent when I'm there.
Well, you're a much better leader. You're a much better spouse. You're a much better partner. You're a
Yeah.
much better example. And I love the fact that you're being vulnerable, because the lot of people I coach, they won't let go of their
Mhm.
ego, and really when we do that, we're connecting to fear and not love. And you
Yeah.
may or may not agree. Whenever we make a decision, it comes from one of two places, period: fear or love. And I
Mhm.
coach that way, and I behave that way. I just want to recognize you, Lisa, because back when I was 9, my parents multiplied. So I got a stepmom and a stepdad within like 13 months. And I don't remember much before I was 9, but I can tell you I remember a lot of what after 9. And George, my stepdad, and Connie, my stepmother, have been two of my best friends,
Mhm.
two of my biggest influencers. And because now I had 4 different opinions and
Mhm.
4 different people who were curious. And I'm
Mhm.
not saying 4 is better than 2, because
Mhm.
I also learned that we just have limited amount of intimacy to go
Yeah.
around. And that's a whole nother podcast. But I would say that God bless you for taking your role as a step parent just as serious as someone who has their own kids, because you are impacting the lives of these 2 little people. And so thank you for that.
Yeah.
And
I think it's
they may not always tell you, but
yeah.
just, yeah.
And I think I love the fact, it's like how I kind of approach is now these 2 beautiful human beings have 4 adults that love them. And, like you said, we may have different levels of intimacy between those relationships, and they have a team of adults that are capable of loving them and holding them. And it's been one of the biggest, it's the biggest challenge that I've probably experienced in my life. And it's one of the biggest joys.
Yeah. Isn't that funny though? The things that are hard, uh, when we approach them with a place of, okay, what can I do for the people in this situation,
Yeah.
not just me,
Yeah.
getting back to that. And I believe curiosity is more than a behavior. It's a skill.
Hmm.
And I believe when you harness the interest in being curious, and you've said the word authentic a lot. And if you look on my site, it's all over the place, because when we're not real, we're not helping anybody.
Right.
And that authentic gift to ask wonderful questions and find out where the other person is coming from.
Mhm.
And I'll leave you with this question: have you ever asked your leaders to ask their team, how may I be a better leader today?
For sure. I
Yeah.
think, that idea of um what and the distinction there is not asking like, how should I support you? It's
No.
not that, right?
No.
It's like, what is it? How can I lift you up? What is that? How can I serve you as a leader? That is a really important distinction. So I appreciate you calling that out.
Yeah, and I actually do it as a dad, and I've been doing it for years. And and when they were 4 and 6, it was interesting questions. More cereal, stay up later, watch this movie.
Yeah.
But now it's, let me think about that.
Yeah.
And then sometimes Brooks will say, well, could you behave differently around Sam? Can you help me do this instead of that? Can you
Hmm.
not get frustrated when
Yeah.
right? And it's amazing the interesting information that we can get when we're
Yeah.
authentically curious. So, Lisa Pedersen, it's been a joy. You're an amazing person. And everyone I know that knows you speaks highly of you. So,
Oh, that's great to hear. Thanks, Greg. It's been a wonderful conversation. I very much enjoyed it myself.
yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, Lisa Pedersen with Root Purpose Group. And again, thank you so much for making time. And don't forget to be kind, be considerate, and be curious. Lisa, thanks for reminding us how important it is to be curious. So thank you for that. And everyone listening, go out and be nice, be humble, and be helpful with someone today. God bless.